Hello, friends. Welcome into Tennessee Titans Today. I am Tom Downey, and today's show is a Titans trade mailbag, answering your questions and or reacting to your trade ideas for Tennessee. Before we get going, at long last, finally, training camp is just around the corner for Tennessee. We are inside of 2 weeks to go. Rookies report for Tennessee on July 23rd. Vets report on July 26th. They get the playbooks, and then training camp gets underway with real practices, or they get the rest of the playbooks, depending on how they operate. If you are excited about Titans training camp and you can't wait for our coverage, any coverage on Tennessee with football finally coming back, hit that big red button and subscribe right now. Our first trade idea, Weston Hunter says the Titans get Orlando Brown. Chiefs get a first and a second. So a lot to unpack here. Obviously, the franchise tag deadline has come and gone. The Chiefs did not pay Orlando Brown, allegedly because he wanted to be the highest paid tackle in the NFL, and the Chiefs balked at that idea with the team control that they have over him. That's also more than what the Chiefs gave up to acquire Orlando Brown a few years ago. A first and a second and a record-setting contract when you would also be benching Dylan Radins or maybe playing him at left guard in this scenario and moving one of Taylor Lewan or Orlando Brown over to right tackle. That's a lot to do. Now, Orlando Brown is very good, and I will make note that when you play with a quarterback of the style of Patrick Mahomes, who drifts deep into the pocket, which he's Mahomes, I'm not knocking him, but that is how he plays football, you do tend to allow more pressures. I promise you Orlando Brown's pressure numbers would go down, hypothetically, if he had someone like Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. But for a massive contract you'd be giving up, all of those things, I have issues with this idea. We're also past that franchise tag deadline. So Brown wants a record deal. You can't give it to him anymore. We're past the extension deadline. Now you can do a hey wink wink, hey we'll get it done. We got you, buddy. But you can't actually do it, which means you have to have him on your roster on the salary cap hit this year, and that's not how teams typically like to do things. That's why it's very rare for a post-franchise tag deadline trade to go down. But maybe Orlando Brown holds out and you can figure out something from that perspective. Would you trade for Orlando Brown right now? This is going to be our pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad break comes on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there, type in Y for yes or N for no. Let's go to Minnesota for this one. Nathan Hamblin gets giving up a fourth and a seventh for Dalvin Tomlinson. I love the idea of Dalvin Tomlinson on the Titans. He has been one of my guy I view as more underrated than most in the NFL. And a front of Danico Autry, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Jeffrey Simmons is the stuff of dreams for Titans fans and nightmares for opposing offensive lines and quarterbacks. I also don't think it's that likely. I'm not sure the Vikings are selling right now. Heck, they've been linked to signing guys like Ndamukong Suh and others. So I like the idea, the thought process, but I think the value is probably pretty fair in the end. But I think that would be one I have to revisit closer to the trade deadline than right now. Now, if you have more Titans trade ideas, comments, questions, anything that falls in that general bucket, put them in the comments section. Just use hashtag Titans. It makes it a lot easier for producer Jack to find your questions and bring them up on screen. From Sambo, Titans get Darius Slayton. The Giants get a 2023 fourth-round pick. It's not that often that we find and get trade ideas that have insert favorite team, in this case the Titans, giving up more value than someone's worth. I think a fourth-round pick is too much for Darius Slayton. I think you could get him right now for a fifth, if not a sixth. And I actually really like this idea. Darius Slayton's numbers plummeted last year. He also had to deal with Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett and Joe Judge, and with all those J's, it was just a garbage performance. It was just not good for New York. I don't know if you're going to get 2020, 2019 Slayton again. Maybe he peaked early, but he does bring the thing Tennessee doesn't have, a true vertical downfield threat with speed. That is Slayton's game is all about winning vertically and making big plays. Robert Woods, Treylon Burks, they can make big plays, but they're not that mold of receiver. If you add Darius Slayton and make him your receiver 3 or even receiver 4, I actually love that idea. So I am all aboard giving up a mid to late day 3 pick, if not just an outright late day 3 pick, in exchange for Darius Slayton. There were a lot of questions, once again, on the wide receiver spot, which I think shouldn't surprise anybody. But is wide receiver the biggest need for the Titans? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Sound off for me right now in the comment section. All right, more wide receiver trade talk here. The Seahawks give up Tyler Lockett. The Titans get give up a first and a third round pick, Not the first time we've had a Tyler Lockett trade question here. Contract details matter. If traded, the Titans would owe Lockett only $3 million. The Seahawks do save $6.25 million. They'd also be eating a pretty good amount of dead money overall with the way that deal was structured. I would argue a trade next year is more likely than a trade this year. Also, I'm not moving a first and a third for Tyler Lockett. He's too old for me. And I'm not saying too old to acquire, but too old to give up that much. I'm talking about a guy who turns 30 this year. He's been super productive. Lockett has been one of the more underrated receivers over the past 4 years in the NFL. He's awesome. But I don't think it makes a ton of sense to give up a first or get a first and a third for A.J. Brown and then ship it right back out for an older receiver with more consistent production, admittedly, in Tyler Lockett. Now, we here at Titans Today are giving you videos year-round. That's off-season, preseason, regular season, draft season, free agency, SCN. We've got you guys covered. So if you want that all for free, it's pretty straightforward. Go subscribe right now. From Real Wolf King, bring back Julio or trade for Corey Davis. We broke down the Julio stuff on a previous video, so we'll focus in on Corey Davis, which Titans legend, right? Contract, again, matters a lot here, right? If traded, the Jets actually saved $13 million with the way they structured that Corey Davis contract. And that is what the Tennessee Titans would then owe Corey Davis this year. Davis had a career year in 2020. The former early round draft pick looked like the guy Tennessee wanted him to be, but they let him walk because of money. And also, A.J. Brown was better, but now they lost A.J. Brown. And again, partially because of quarterback play. Corey Davis didn't fare all that well, and that is a significant, I would argue, red flag in terms of, he's coming off a down year. Also, he's $13 million. We didn't want to pay A.J. Brown $25. Now we're going to pay Robert Woods and Corey Davis $26 combined. Don't love that idea. So of the 3 guys, I much prefer Darius Slayton. I think Corey Davis is also more obtainable than Tyler Lockett. But put all that together, the affordability, the availability, and just the desire to add them. Pick one of these 3 wide receivers. Type in CD for Corey Davis, DS for Darius Slayton, or TL for Tyler Lockett. Let me know who you would rather trade for in the comments section. Jared Wells next up here. I would like to see the Titans trade to get Deonta Foreman back to eventually pair with Hassan Haskins after the Henry era. So, couple notes here. Foreman's on a 1-year deal in Carolina. So, you could sign him again next year whenever the Henry era ends. I don't mind the idea of hypothetically pairing Haskins and Foreman together. I also know that Foreman's 26. I think Henry's got at least 2 to 3 more years. By that point, you're talking about a 30-year-old Foreman and Haskins on the end of his deal. I think you're looking a little bit too far out in the future, unless you think the Derrick Henry era is going to end soon. And in that scenario, that's maybe a whole different conversation. But I think if you really wanted to keep Foreman, could have just re-signed him instead. Now get your Titans trade ideas for me in the comments section. Again, this is your chance. If you have Titans trade ideas, questions, theories, whatever it is, put them in the comments using #Titans.